Welcome to Beer and Iron's Dump and Bake Easy Spanish Rice recipe baked in a 12-inch Camp cast iron Dutch oven. There is some chopping, dicing, and brining with this recipe, but most of the ingredients are a dump and go right out of the packages. It's been hot, dry, and windy up here in northern Idaho. A lot of fires going on here and there. Been wanting to get out and do some Dutch oven cooking for you all this summer, but the summer activities in dry woods have kept me on the back patio for my Dutch oven fixes. Today is a day off from work for me, but I figure why wait until Christmas to offer peace and goodwill to my coworkers? I'm going up to work today and I'm going to cook a meal for my coworkers, and I'm going to take the opportunity to share this recipe with you all. We're going to prepare some of the ingredients at home, and we're going to pack them with us along with the pre-prepared ingredients that we pulled straight from the grocery store shelves. We're going to start with 2 packages of Knorr brand Spanish rice. You could use another Knorr variety or even another brand altogether, but a word to the wise. Look at your packaging and the liquid volumes they suggest. Knorr Mexican rice suggests 1 3/4 cup of liquid per package, whereas Knorr Spanish rice suggests 2 cups per package. You can use any kind of rice you like, but the liquid amounts for this recipe are based on Knorr brand Spanish rice. Select a good Mexican lager or an easy drinking lager for this recipe. We'll only use 12 ounces from this can. 12 ounces of chicken broth. 1 15-ounce can of black beans. We will not drain or rinse these beans. I've worked with this recipe to get that liquid amount down just right. Part of the liquid needed to cook this recipe will come from those beans. It's a hassle trying to drain and rinse at camp or in the outdoors in general. I wanted this to be an easy recipe. 1 15-ounce can of fire-roasted diced tomatoes. And again, don't drain them dudes. We'll need that liquid. 2.25 ounces of olives, sliced black olives, liquid and all. I've tried using 2 cans of olives. I love olives, but the final dish comes out just a bit too soupy. Some panko crumbs, about a handful. You could use some breadcrumbs if you prefer. I'll tell you in a bit as to why panko breadcrumbs really create a nice finish to this recipe. We're going to use taco seasoning in this recipe as well. And it's here where I'll talk to you about salt, talk to you about sodium. I don't want my meal to be too salty. You could just use a lower sodium taco seasoning if you like, but I've noticed there's not much difference between the two. There's about 1,325 milligrams of sodium in this entire bag, and we're going to be using 2 bags. That's about 2,650 milligrams of sodium. There's a little bit more than that in a teaspoon of salt, considering the salt from all the sources: tomatoes, black beans, broth, and olives. I think this dish will come out perfectly salted, so I don't add any extra salt. But I did notice that adding the taco seasoning to this recipe is needed for the punch in the palate that you want to make this dish taste delicious. What I do is either use a low sodium beans, broth, and taco seasoning, or I use my own seasoning recipe and leave the salt out of that recipe. There's a link in the description to that taco seasoning recipe, and I'll go ahead and list it in the description as well. To sum up the pre-prepared ingredients, we'll need 2 packages of Knorr Spanish rice, 12 ounces of a nice Mexican lager or other easy drinking lager, 12 ounces of chicken broth, a 15-ounce can of black beans, a 15-ounce can of fire-roasted tomatoes, 2.25 ounces of sliced black olives, a handful of panko crumbs or other breadcrumbs of your preference. Some of the other ingredients you'll need are 2 bunches of green onions. We'll dice these green onions and use the white parts mixed into the recipe, and the green chive parts will be used to garnish this recipe. Dice 1 green bell pepper, and dice 1 red bell pepper. 2 cups or more of shredded cheese. I like cheddar in this recipe, but this recipe don't care what kind of cheese you use. And the chicken. Use 2 large chicken breasts that we're going to tenderize, brine, and cut up at home. We'll pack this chicken cut up and prepared all in a zipper bag. A 3rd piece of chicken is A-OK, and it's up to you. When you're ready to cook, get your 12-inch Camp cast iron Dutch oven out and at the ready. I suggest using a shallow or regular 12-inch Camp cast iron Dutch oven for this recipe. We'll be baking this recipe and we'll need at least 24 charcoal briquettes. I suggest you put 40 or more to the fire. We'll not use all 40 briquettes while we bake this recipe, but we will need them later when we broil this dish later to finish it off. The wind is picking up as it has over the past few days. I'm using my windscreen not to block the wind from the briquettes as they fire up. That wind will actually help them get started. I'm using it to keep the embers from flying out and causing a problem. I keep a fire extinguisher nearby, just in case. It's dry up here in northern Idaho. After a bit, I'll give them a good shake. This will cut down on the smoke and cycle the briquettes around in that charcoal chimney, but it also kicks out a bunch of embers too. Now my wind shield for the Dutch oven will keep the heat in and keep that heat from blowing away in that wind. To learn how to create these wind shields, select the link in the description. We'll first bake, then broil this dish. We're going to bake this at a temperature goal of 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 degrees Celsius to around 375 degrees Fahrenheit and 190 degrees Celsius. We're going to use 8 or 9 briquettes on the bottom and about 16 to 17 briquettes on the top. To learn more about heating the Camp Cast Iron Dutch Oven, select the link in the description. Organize your 8 to 9 briquettes at the bottom. There's no sautéing with this recipe. It's a dump and bake kind of deal. First, add the 12 ounces of beer to the pot. Make sure that pot ain't too hot and your beer ain't too cold. You'll risk cracking that pot if you put cold beer in a hot pot. Next, add 12 ounces of broth. I'm using a measuring cup because the beer can I used was 16 ounces. Easier would be to use a 12-ounce beer and then use that empty beer can to measure out your broth. Add the 2 packages of Spanish rice and mix in well. Make sure all those lumps of seasoning are busted up. Add the taco seasoning. Then add the chicken. Pre-brining and pre-chopping that chicken is optional, but it is suggested. You could just cut up those chicken breasts right over that pot. But again, I suggest brining and chopping ahead of time. Give that pot a good stirring. Now add the can of black beans. Then add the tomatoes. And then the olives. Their order is up to you. Toss in the bulb parts, rather the white parts of the onions into the pot. Now stir everything up real well. And that's it. Put the lid back on the pot and let's get our top heat all settled. Set 16 to 17 charcoal briquettes on that lid. And now give it about 15 minutes before you turn the pot and lid. Oh my gracious, that sun's coming out right over us. Turn the lid in one direction 1/3 of a turn, and then turn the whole pot 1/3 of a turn in the other direction. Wait another 15 minutes. Let's take a peek. Yeah boy, that's perfect right there. I found that 30 minutes really is spot on. Now we gotta dress up this dish. Panko crumbs. We want a dish that has a casserole consistency. Any extra liquid will be taken care of by these panko crumbs. You'll find that we won't have too much liquid left over at all, but these panko crumbs really do the trick. Just a handful is perfect. Then the cheese, about 2 cups or more of shredded cheese. We have all this orange cheese and I want some color. Let's add most or all of the diced red and green bell peppers. You don't have to use them all. Now cover it with some green onion chives. And optional is a bit of dusting with some paprika. I didn't mention this earlier, but I figured I had some in my bag, so what the hey. Sprinkle a bit of panko crumbs on the top of it all, just a bit, not too much. This will toast up nicely. Now put the lid back on the pot and remove all of the bottom heat. We're done with the bottom heat. We want all the heat on the top, and those extra briquettes too. We want all those on the top of this oven. This is the broiling part of the cook and takes about 5 to 15 minutes. That depends on your briquettes, how much they're burned down. We're going to spend about 15 minutes with this broiling. Our briquettes are burned down somewhat. We want those ingredients on the top of that dish to cook as well. I want to make sure my bell peppers are not still cold and crunchy when I serve this meal. I want that cheese well melted and even a bit of crusty cheese at the edges. I want those panko crumbs to toast up as well. Oh man, there we go, right there. Remove all the heat from the top of the pot. I use a metal bowl to fully extinguish my briquettes. Brush off the top of that pot. I'm going to get this hot pot inside and let folks serve it up themselves. If you've enjoyed this video and this easy dump and bake Spanish rice recipe, give it a thumbs up. Select that subscribe button and give a bit of a ding on that dinner bell. I appreciate all of you for watching this video. Hopefully soon we can get out into the great big outdoors and do some more cooking and sharing some recipes that I've been saving up. Until then, y'all keep on cooking in those black beauties and enjoying those frosted glasses of that fermented barley pop, but wait until after work. We'll see you next time on beerandIron.com.